I promise transparency on this podcast and YouTube endeavor. And I did not realize that there's like a community function on YouTube where you can just like post, hey, do you have Hey Joe questions for us? And people can leave comments and leave Hey Joe questions or any other number of things that are on there.
I did not know that either. So I'm glad you're on this.
Yeah, man.
I don't know how to post a YouTube short, which you're going to have to teach me as well.
Yeah, I am going to have to teach you how to do a YouTube short. All right. To our guy, Al Hood, over under on why do the national announcers hate the Canes questions. The over under on that, if I'll set it at 3, Joe. How many versions of this question do you think we had?
More than that, because people I actually watch the games with, shout out to the Swede. They really don't like the announcers, and no matter how many different times I try to say, like, they really don't hate your team. I promise
they don't.
you.
They don't.
I cannot get it through to them that the bias that you're trying to hear is just, it's kind of like me with Carolina fans. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
With Carolina fans, they think I hate them. I don't hate them. I just don't love them. So when someone doesn't speak your love language, you assume, like a Sith, the opposite. You think, well, they don't love me. They must hate me. No, they're probably indifferent to you. They're probably just trying to analyze what's happening. But man, there were a couple of times where the volume was actually turned down in the room because they were like, I cannot handle these announcers.
I'll say this to your point about they don't love us, right? Like, I'll use Mike Maniscalco and Trip Tracy as a prime example here. Mike Maniscalco and Trip Tracy do a fantastic job on Bally Sports, but Trip, bless him, when he's talking about the Canes, he's going to advocate. I'll use the word advocate, not root, not be a homer. He's going to look at things from a Canes perspective. And when you spend the entire regular season listening to a broadcast and consuming media that is looking at things from a Canes perspective and as an advocate for the Carolina Hurricanes, and we're included in this, well, then when you get a national perspective, all of a sudden you're going to be a little confused as to, wait a minute, like you say, why don't you love this team like we do? I think it comes more from a twofold issue. One, it's more proof that nobody gives a damn about the Carolina Hurricanes on the national level, which is stupid because they have a wonderful head coach in Rod Brind'Amour that they can just kind of point to. Like, Rod's a star, man. Like, I don't know how much I can put it bluntly. He is a star. If Rod, let me put it this way, if Rod were coaching somewhere else, let's put Rod on one of the more traditional teams. Are you telling me that Rod Brind'Amour wouldn't be huge? Right?
I'll push back just ever so slightly because these are people who played in the league or followed the league. Now, you have to remember, and Rod said this the other day before game 1 against the Devils. Rod was not a glad hander as a player.
No, he wasn't.
He didn't press the flesh as a player. Now, he wasn't rude to the media by any means. But when you went into that locker room, you talked to Ron Francis, you talked to Glenn Wesley. And if you could drag Rod out of the workout room, or more likely you went in to the workout room and you talked to him, please don't misunderstand what I'm. He was never rude. He was never indifferent. It just wasn't his favorite thing. He was not that wasn't his thing. As a coach, we've seen a completely different side of him, in part because he said, that's now more of my job.
Yeah.
And the pregame speeches that you see and some of the other things that he does that you see, he's embraced all of that. He's evolved into that. So, yeah, I can understand maybe, I don't know his relationship with Keith Jones. I know they played together with Philly for a minute. I'm sure there's no animosity there.
No, there's no animosity there.
But again, Rod, the coach, is different than Rod, the player, was personality-wise.
So all of this ties back to, it's understandable that you'd be upset. Now, even I, like watching, the New York coverage, if it was the Islanders or the Rangers, it clearly, it shows once again that the national media is looking at it from a perspective of, well, where are the most fans, right? Sure. And we'll talk to Greg Wyshynski about this hopefully in a little bit, in that there's also almost an NC State-like effect happening with the Carolina Hurricanes too. I think hockey media understands they can poke the bear with Canes fans because Canes fans are active on Twitter. It's the old NC State Jeff Goodman battle where Goodman knew exactly what buttons to push to get people riled up. And I think there's a little bit of an element of that with the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's answer a question from David on Twitter. Hey, Joe, do you think all these State fans pushing for Elliott Avent to go will change their mind and want him to coach for life if they beat Carolina? Yeah, it looks like, I will admit, and we'll have to catch up with our friend Darren Vaught of the ACC Baseball Etc. podcast about what exactly is going on over at NC State. But it's not good, Joe. Shout out to Wake Forest, who's now #1 this late into the season. That's like a first for them. On the other hand, NC State's been on the wrong side of the trend.
A team outside of the SEC is not #1. Maybe you're #1 compared to everybody else, but the SEC will produce the national champion in baseball just as they pretty much do every single year. Not to Wake is having an outstanding season.
They are. They absolutely are.
They've done a great job in building up what they're doing. NC State actually has a pretty good team. Their top 2 pitchers entered the year injured and coming off of surgery, which is obviously problematic. But if you look at their run differential, it's actually pretty good, which I believe in run differential, point differential, goal differential. But baseball's a weird game. And I will obviously not tolerate any slander of Elliott Avent on this program. So, no, he's not. No,
it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated. But the response to these,
frustrated than he is.
The response to this is we have to have some understanding that not everything related to an off-season means, well, the coach has to go. Okay, that's not the solution, especially when Elliott Avent, more so than any other coach in the ACC, is maximizing the most he can out of a program that doesn't have a ton of money. I think that's the one part that, at least my understanding when it comes to college baseball, you look at the SEC and all the money that is flowing through that conference. There's also a want to factor in SEC baseball in towns where it's the only game in town, right? Like Mississippi State has this incredible facility. I've seen pictures of it. I've seen it on TV. It is outstanding, but that's what they want. And there's money that goes behind that, Joe.
Yeah, Mississippi State, I was going to tell you, just fired their pitching coach, Scott Foxhall. They won the national championship 2 years ago, Joe.
Yeah.
Like
different expectations, man.
It's
different
wild.
Expectations.
It's wild. And I remember
it just means more.
It does. I remember NC State going to ECU for a regional round. ECU's got an unbelievable stadium. I don't know if you've ever been up there. It's an unbelievable environment. And I remember Boo Corrigan getting up there for the first time and being like, wow. And Campbell's got a great facility. And you look at some of these things and you go, uh-oh, they're playing this thing left-handed. And, of course, the pandemic year, for instance, the year that Mississippi State won 2 years ago, NC State kind of sort of beat the best team in the tournament twice and then was, set home. So,
all right, we got one from Nick. If you were a teacher and you go on a field trip to the zoo with first graders that gets back to school at 4:00, followed by going to game 5 for the Canes, does that sound like a great idea? Asking for a teacher. Hey, man, you got to do what you got to do. If you're about that hockey life, you are about that hockey life.
I'm assuming this is the zoo in Asheboro, which I enjoyed tremendously. But I believe it was our old friend Brian Lord that I explained to. Do not get caught in Africa and then have to walk back to the other side of the parking lot. That is not what you want to do. You will not make it to game 5.
No.
So make sure you have a little bit of patience because you'll be with little people. Of course, you have that already. But make sure that you get on that little tram trolley thing and don't try to hoof it. Don't be a hero with either James or Jackson on your shoulders. I made that walk and I was like, no, I can do it.
Yeah. I've done that.
Joe.
Spoiler alert.
I went home and slept.
We've all been in a situation where the kids are old enough to walk and not need a stroller, right? Now, normalize a stroller for larger kids is what I'm saying. Like it's not like why is that first grader in a stroller? You know why? Is because they still have little legs and they get tired.
They can't keep up.
They can't keep up, and you got to be somewhere. So you stuff them in a stroller and you book it rather than, as you said, you got to carry them. Now, my younger son was at that point, whether he's a kindergarten or first grader, was somewhat scared of heights to the point where if I put him on my shoulder, which is the easiest way to carry a kid, he didn't like it. He was like clinging on, he's like suffocating me as I'm trying to get going. So, and I can't hold him like I would a football, like when they were a baby. You know, you gotta, get that support right there. You can't do that when they're big. And it's not like you can put them around your shoulder. Like